This is pretty cool. I'm not sure whether I'm in a disco or presenting on a stage at a cool venue here. What a great couple of examples, the presentations and the introduction that I had about energy. Because the start of my presentation, I actually wanted to talk a bit about the purpose of E.ON. Why are we working, and why is it important that we all believe that we're coming to work every day? So what's the purpose of our organization? So I think that this previous presentation that also this guy called Matthew like myself, gave is actually a very nice segue into what I would like to talk about, which is about what we're doing in E.ON. So before I do that, because I want to say, right, why should you care about energy? And I think previously we had a good example of why you should care, because you can't charge your phone if you haven't got any energy. But who knows how much energy that they would use a year in their house? How many kilowatt hours? All right, there's always one or two geeks in the room that are measuring. Actually, it works on the team. Yeah, so there's always a couple of geeks in the room. So the best way of thinking about it is, let's say, about 5,000 to 10,000 kilowatt hours of energy. And I always think it's kind of unhelpful, because when you say that to people, people say, okay, well, what does that mean? I've got no idea what a kilowatt hour of energy is. So then you say, okay, well, what can I do with a kilowatt hour of energy? Well, you can make 36 pieces of toast. Or, actually, the one I prefer, you can make 400 margaritas in a blender. So that means that basically, with the energy that you're producing, you can produce something in the region of 4 million margaritas a year, which if you're an alcoholic is a pretty cool thing. But if you're an environmentalist, it's not so cool, because if you then translate that into CO2, you're talking about in the region of 2,500 to 5,000 kilograms of CO2 that we're putting into the atmosphere. So there's kind of a balance on all of these things. So let me tell you a bit about why we think energy is very important. Well, energy ultimately is somehow linked to the progress of mankind. Right from when we had a look at the the agricultural revolution, that was using biomass. We were burning wood, we were burning other things to create that revolution. Then we went into what I would say is the industrial revolution, where we kind of centralized all the production of electricity. We put grids in place, we put nuclear, we put fossil fuels in place. It was all system-orientated. And that was kind of like big energy, if you like. And no one really liked big energy. Big energy was kind of, you know, burning fuels, creating nuclear power stations, and so on. And I know in Germany, we were moving away from all of those things. But the future, and this is our belief, is that energy is about becoming distributed. It's about renewable. It's about being much more customer-orientated. It's democratizing energy. You are going to be in control of how you produce your energy. So that's why I believe that what we do when we see a technological revolution, where we see society change, where we see the impact that we as a whole have on this planet, we also have to change. And as a company, we believe we want to help people go through that change. We want to move to a greener and a better planet. Why are we doing that? Well, this is produced by NASA, and I know NASA hasn't been funded so well recently with the President of the United States. He's not doing such a good job on the green front, I would say. And when you work in digital, you're always like looking for the next exponential change, and I think this is a very good example, and not a great example for us as humanity of an exponential change that we see that's happening. So this is something that we really have to ultimately tackle. We have to change how we are impacting this planet. We have to change how we engage with energy, how we consume energy in our day-to-day activity. So I could tell you a very silly story, actually. It's a great one. When you see the guys earlier on, in the Western world, we really don't have a concept of it. I was on in holiday in Mozambique, and I was on this amazing island, and the people on the island, they put a couple of hotels, and so it was kind of cool, because all the people on the island were then getting jobs, they were getting wealthier and everything, and actually, funnily enough, they all had mobile phones. And I remember saying to one of the guys, I said, oh, you know, do you have internet access at home? And the guy looked at me in a way that sort of said, and he was like, we don't have electricity. And I thought, you know, that we've kind of haven't quite got a realization of the impact of what this is and how things move forward. So we have to kind of change that. So there's a couple of things which actually give me hope in terms of what's happening, so it's not all doom and gloom. There's a couple of tipping points that we see coming along. So the first one is in relation to what we're calling cost parity in a number of different areas. So the first cost parity would be around it's actually better to have off-grid delivery, or it's cheaper, or it's at parity to produce energy off the grid rather than actually having it all centralized. And that's not actually that far away. Now, this isn't all in Europe, to be fair, but nevertheless, it's still something that's coming along. We also see that the e-mobility revolution, electric cars, is another tipping point for us. We believe that in the next few years, we will see a point when it's actually easier and cheaper to have an electric car. And that will then transform the way that we're transporting ourselves. And also, if we're thinking about how autonomous cars come along, we also see that actually we'll have a different way of actually using transportation than we do right now. So that's another tipping point. That's another change in the way that the dynamics of energy will happen. The final one, which is a bit farther away, which is I would see one of the kind of challenges that we have as society, is that it's actually quite cheap to produce and transport energy at the moment. Therefore, it's actually not as cost effective to put solar panels, batteries on the roof of your properties. And the cost-benefit analysis, if you stack it up, isn't as good as it could be. But that's also coming, so that's going to change as well. So fundamentally, when I look at our purpose as a company, our purpose is about making this planet, making this world a better place tomorrow. That's what E.ON's doing now. Now, you could say, oh, I'm a little bit skeptical about that, but ultimately, we're trying to align our company with a bigger purpose around what we'd like to do. And that's creating a better tomorrow. One of the things that, and when no one put up their hand, one of the reasons that's a problem is because actually when you go through big changes, you have to bring society with you. And actually it's similar when you digitize a company. There's always a reaction. There's always a corporate antibody that stops you, and it's the same in society. And the example that we saw just recently is when we start to raise taxes on diesel, which actually is probably a good thing to do. But actually, we've been telling everyone to buy diesel engines because it's environmentally friendly for the last goodness knows how many years. So of course, in France, where they've been doing that, buying those things more frequently, that's going to be a problem. And I mean, it's morphed into something else, but ultimately, we have to engage people, we have to engage society, and we also have to engage government around this change. We have to be a little smarter about how we're incentivizing a transition of energy. So some of the things that I think would help. So at the moment, we really don't have a meaningful way of trading CO2. Maybe something with blockchain here, if we've got any coders, developers here, a blockchain certificate-based trading network or hub would be something that was pretty cool. Actually, electricity, lower taxes, incentivizing electricity, incentivizing renewables. One of the worrying things that you see now is that governments are actually pulling back from the incentives that they've placed on renewable technology. Now, to be fair, if you're a government, when you put an incentive on something, that translates itself into something else, which is usually higher energy prices. So we, as an energy company, get beaten up because we're having to put the energy prices up. And a lot of that comes back to regulation as well. So we also need things like a way of actually contracting, having smart contracts, and we need incentives to actually help people move into this new world. Not taxes, I say incentives. And then, of course, we've got things like the enabling technologies as well, which are also very important. So as a company, we see ourselves kind of transitioning now. And you see that in the way that we've changed our company. Over the last years, we're moving away from the big generation. We do still have nuclear power stations. That was a German regulatory requirement that we keep the nuclear power stations and decommission them, which is fair enough. We're doing that. But we're moving we're moving away from the generation, more into a decentralized world. And that means that we also need to kind of transform our company to prepare ourselves for how we will work with our customers in the future. It's going to be different. It's not the same as we've been working with customers in the past. And some of the technology that we put in place, the digitization that we make of our company, will be the thing that enables us to actually be successful in the future. So let's talk a little bit about digitization, because that's kind of my job as well. This is like the how, if you like. So that was why we're doing it. Now let's talk a little bit about how we think that digitization, data, and AI, or machine learning, plays a role in the activity. So what we've done is we've created a kind of a pyramid of things that we think are very important for us as a business. Ultimately, when you're trying to change something, the culture of your leadership and the capabilities of your organization is one of the fundamental things that will change you. And it's the most difficult thing, I think, of change in an organization is to try and change a culture, an engineering culture, which is actually a very good culture. If you want to build nuclear power stations, you want a safe, very planned, etc. culture to build that. But now we need to kind of make that culture more agile, and I know that's a buzzword as well. And we also need to make sure that we've got the right skills and capabilities in our organization to thrive and drive things through. Then we start to look at things like process automation. So, if we're looking at rolling out all of our grids, and we still have very big grids, we'll be probably, once we've done the acquisition of Energy, the biggest grid provider in Germany in terms of bringing electricity and gas and everything to the homes. We need to ensure that we're doing that in a smart way, and that's about automating the way that we're driving our business. When you digitize, one of the things that people tend to forget when you do digital transformation is the actual transformation part. So you take your existing processes and you digitize them, and then everyone's like, oh, that's a shit process, because you haven't actually done the transformation part. So the process automation is partly about how do we actually improve the efficiency of our business and our organization. On top of that then comes the way that you engage with your customers. And what we've seen this morning a little bit is about Facebook and Amazon and everything else. So customers really have changed. They expect that we're going to engage with them in a very different way. And actually our employees expect the same. So that's why we put the two things together. We want to be able to create, both for our employees and for our customers, ways of engaging with us that meet the needs of a changing society in terms of how we're starting to want to interact with companies moving forward. The next thing is about how you could potentially recreate your business. So in digital, when you look out, you see an Amazon, you see something, they've built their business digital from scratch. If you had an opportunity to do that again, how would you do that? And that's what we've called the redesign of our existing business. We take digital at heart, and we rebuild the existing business, the whole technology architecture from scratch. And then the final part is around new businesses. So digital allows us a great way of actually being able to create new recurring revenue streams for us. So as we move to a more data-driven organization, we can actually work with customers, and we can offer different services to customers over and above the energy production. So I mentioned culture. Actually, we have a big team that's based in Munich, so it's great to be in Munich here with the team, and some of them are here today, so it's great to see them doing digital, doing all of our data activities. So it's pretty cool. But to bring the right people into your organization, you also need a culture that's ready to accept that in the organization. You need to basically really build an organization that's operating in a little bit of a different way, based on data, thinking innovatively, thinking digitally first. And it's about creating, I would say, something in the organization that's, it's not like a virus, maybe it is like a virus, because you're kind of like a small organization, but you overall want to transform the whole organization. And we need to start somewhere, and we kind of grow out from that starting point. So culture is a critical thing. We're also looking at how we use data and how we start to manage our bigger assets. So we already run, using machine learning, our wind farms. So if you think about the way that wind farms work, wind farms all point in the direction of the wind, which actually means that the ones at the front capture the most energy and the ones behind capture less energy. If you run them in a smart way, you'd actually optimize each turbine individually. Now, you can't do that unless you're using some kind of technology to drive that. So we're actually applying machine learning so that actually the wind turbines themselves learn how best to position themselves so that they can actually allow the maximum yield out of the wind farm. We're also looking at how we, and this is a great example because it's in Bavaria, how you can infuse data into the business. So this example is about where should we put e-mobility charging stations. So this is data that we've just ingested. We haven't bought this from anywhere. This is available through Google, through other areas. So the data team has ingested all that data in terms of how traffic is moving around, where buildings are placed, which buildings have got parking spaces, and how much traffic is going through those different locations. And then what you do is you basically infuse that, you put that into an algo, and the algo then tells you, oh, you should go and speak to Lidl in this location in Bavaria because they could do with a charging station for their customers. We also look at how we partner and how we engage with customers. So the problem with energy, as I said earlier, is that we don't really care about it until the energy's gone off or till the heating's gone off. So we want to actually create tools that allow people to engage with energy in a different way. So we're working with Microsoft to actually use their kind of scale and capabilities to actually build out new tools that allow customers to actually really see how they're using the energy and actually be able to engage with it in a different way. We're also working with our bigger customers as well. So this is another example. Again, data and digital infused together to deliver a different service to our customers. This is about us saying to a customer, right, actually, let's take all of your data for all of your consumption. This is, I'm not sure we should really put their name on it, but Dixon's car phone warehouse in the UK. And we can then actually, with their energy manager, work with them to identify maybe there's anomalies in their business where the energy consumption is more than they would expect. And therefore, we can work with them to try and enhance and improve their energy efficiency. And that also leads us then to say to them, actually, is there a different way of producing energy for you as well? So that helps us on this journey to a carbon-free society. We're doing the same with some of the larger towns in Germany. So I think this is another, and I'm not quite sure where this one is, but with some of the Stadtwerkers and so on, we can actually then work with them to help them actually understand how they're consuming energy. And the cool thing about this is that once you start to visualize it, you can say, well, actually, hang on a minute, what happens if I add a different asset on? How could we start trading energy between each other? So this kind of leads us into quite a different future where people are actually trading energy between each other, and we kind of enable a sort of a more peer-to-peer energy trading future than we would see right now. So in summary, just to kind of close up this canter through everything, first of all, my key message is that actually the purpose of what you do is very important. We want to create a purpose around creating a better tomorrow. We are recruiting, so if there's anybody that feels passionate about wanting to make a change to the world, hasn't really considered an energy company in the past, we're very keen to talk to everyone about the different opportunities that we have around data and digital and development. So that's something that we think is very, very important. We also want to engage with customers, and we want to engage with regulators to drive that change. We believe it's our responsibility to try and help society through this change. And then ultimately, it's about building our capabilities to drive this change, to make a difference, to create a better tomorrow. So that's it. Thank you.